trying to make it a partisan thing, like they're mad at people for being there, like, oh, you support Trump. Like, it's a fucking fight at the White House. Doesn't mean you endorse foreign policy. Like, shut the fuck up.
MAGA is ending. And I think it ended with that UFC fight. I think that was the last party MAGA was going to throw. You had motocross, you had UFC fights. For the die-hard MAGA people, this is what they got. They were promised a lot of other stuff. But this is what they got.
All right, so at this point, it's probably fair to say that Joe Rogan has been going through a pretty difficult year. In fact, his reputation in 2026 may be at the lowest point it's ever been. It feels like people from every corner of his audience, including friends, longtime fans, and even some conservatives who used to strongly support him, are beginning to question him and call out what they see as hypocrisy. And there are several reasons why that perception has been growing. For one, Joe still hasn't publicly addressed the fact that a number of wealthy associates and former guests have reportedly been mentioned in the Epstein-related documents. Because of that, many people find it strange that someone known for questioning everything seems to have shown very little interest in one of the biggest and most controversial stories of the last decade and a half. Things only got worse after that episode with Theo Von was released. During the conversation, many viewers felt that Joe dismissed Theo's concerns and made him second-guess himself simply because Theo was criticizing Palantir, Israel, the conflict involving Iran, and the Trump administration. The clips from that exchange spread across social media so quickly that they became a major topic of discussion online, with even Sean Strickland weighing in on the situation.
Decision was read.
I don't know, dude. The UFOs, man, APAC, I don't fucking know, dog. Like, how he did Theo dirty, you know?
So, the first half of 2026 has essentially turned into one long public relations headache for Joe Rogan. When you combine all of those controversies with his frequent visits to the White House and his close relationship with Donald Trump, even some of his most loyal supporters have started looking at him a little differently. A growing number of people believe he's become too closely tied to powerful political figures and billionaire associates, including people like Peter Thiel. To many critics, it seems like whenever Joe starts moving toward a position that could challenge those circles or criticize them the way some of his other friends have, something always happens that pulls him back in line. Whether that perception is fair or not, it's become a common talking point among people who follow him. One example that gets brought up frequently is the UFC event held on the White House lawn this month. If you remember, there were multiple JRE episodes leading up to the event where Joe openly questioned the entire idea. He repeatedly argued that it sounded like a bad concept from the start, describing it as something that could easily turn into a logistical disaster. He also made it clear that he viewed the event as overly gimmicky and wasn't particularly enthusiastic about it overall.
Iran. I mean, they've got to be terrified. I don't know much about anything, but I would be scared to fight a country that is having a fist fight on the White House lawn. That's how bad and crazy we are. Like, we're fighting at the president's house, each other.
Yeah.
We're gonna f you up.
I'm not thrilled about that.
Yeah, why are you not looking forward to the White House fight?
Well, it's kind of a gimmick, you know.
Of course.
There's that. And, you know, people are criticizing the card, but if it was any other card, it's a great card. Mm-hmm. They're criticizing it because they said it was going to be the greatest card of all time. And it's just going to be a security nightmare.
That's true.
You're on the White House lawn. Also, they're fighting outside. What if it rains? What if it's hot? You're in the middle of June.
Right.
June in D.C. can get pretty warm.
Yep.
That affects fighters. It's like violence. There's going to be a UFC on the White House lawn.
Yeah.
That seems like a good, safe place to be, huh? Everyone's going to know where all the world leaders are going to be. We're all going to be stuck sitting in that spot for 6 hours calling fights.
You're going to be there, right?
Super safe. I feel completely safe.
You're going to be there, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to be there.
Do you like the concept of it or no?
I do not like it.
Then, the event finally took place, and almost immediately, Joe's stance seemed to change. After spending weeks criticizing the concept, he suddenly began presenting it as a massive success. In fact, he went as far as describing it as one of the most watched sporting events ever. What really caught people's attention, though, were some of the numbers being thrown around afterward. Joe reportedly suggested that the event generated more attention than the Super Bowl, citing figures of more than 150 million views within just a few days. Those claims quickly became a major talking point online, with critics arguing that the numbers didn't add up and that the figures being circulated were not supported by the available evidence. As a result, many of the same people who had already been questioning Joe's consistency pointed to this as another example of him completely reversing his position. From their perspective, someone who had previously called the event a bad idea and a potential disaster was now promoting it as a historic success, which only fueled even more criticism and skepticism.
People would look at you like, why you're working for a cage fighting organization? Why would you do that? Cut to 25 years later, it's on the lawn of the White House, and it is one of the most watched sporting events in the history of the world.
Yeah.
I don't know what the total overall views are as of now, but I know that it was well over, I think it was 150 million just by Monday.
Unbelievable.
Just by Monday. So that's the night of, and then people that watched the replay that weren't there when the fight took place because they heard about it. But now between then and now we're dealing with Tuesday. It's probably another 50 or 60 million people have watched it.
What makes this whole situation even more interesting is that the reported viewership figures were released around the same time that the podcast episode came out. From what was being reported, the event drew roughly 10 million views. Now, to be fair, that is still a massive audience and an impressive number by almost any standard. However, critics were quick to point out that it was nowhere close to the audience typically reached by the Super Bowl. Some even argued that it didn't match the viewership of major NFL broadcasts, and others claimed that the MMA event Jake Paul helped bring to Netflix just weeks earlier may have attracted even more attention. Despite that, Joe was speaking about the event as if it had shattered every record imaginable and become one of the biggest spectacles ever produced. But that wasn't the only thing people focused on. During the same podcast episode from last week, ironically featuring a guest known for discussing government operations and influence, Joe argued that people should stop turning the event into a political issue and simply appreciate it for the spectacle that it was. As a result, some commentators viewed the entire spectacle as a major distraction from other stories dominating public conversation at the time, including continued discussions surrounding the Epstein files.
One of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life.
That's cool.
It was fucking amazing.
Wish I was there.
Oh my God. I talked a bunch of people into going. I didn't want to, Shane Gillis was thinking about not going. I'm like, bro, you gotta go. It's gonna be epic. It's gonna be a once ever thing, not a once in a lifetime, once in anybody's lifetime. It's never happened before. It's probably never gonna happen again.
Probably not.
No.
Yeah.
That's something you have to see and experience.
Yeah.
And it's so many people are trying to make it a partisan thing. They're mad at people for being there. Oh, you support Trump. It's a fucking fight at the White House. Yeah. Doesn't mean you endorse foreign policy. Shut the fuck up.
That's
please.
Too much.
Just please stop. And again, it's this thing, the ego thing, where people are they just want so badly. And on both sides, for sure. The right celebrates this as a win for masculinity and patriotism and all these different things. Okay, settle down. Everybody settle down.
Yeah.
We should all be together. And, change your mind.
Yeah.
Change your whole perspective. And there's no better way to change your whole perspective than a complete dissolving of your ego momentarily. At least for a while, just lock it all away, push it out, and then you get a chance to see what it actually is doing.
At the same time, there's really no denying that the event itself was incredibly entertaining. Every fight ended in a knockout, there was live music accompanying each fighter's walkout, and from a pure entertainment standpoint, the show delivered. But both things can be true at the same time. The event may have been a great spectacle, while also carrying a strong political element. In fact, it seemed like almost everyone who attended understood that reality. Everyone except Joe Rogan, according to his critics. One detail that stood out to a lot of people was the absence of Theo Von.
Up until recently, Theo had become a familiar face at UFC events and appeared to attend whenever he had the chance. He's a legitimate fan of the sport and has even been spotted sitting by himself in the crowd during preliminary fights just to watch the action.
How was last night, dude? Was that fun? What a
Yeah, it was
crazy
crazy.
event.
It was crazy.
So good.
The best was like in between fights, they'd blast like, "Let the bodies hit the floor." This is insane.
At the White House?
Yeah, at the White House.
The White House.
Yeah, I almost didn't go, but they got me. They posted a video of them doing like dirt bikes, and I was like,
I did see the dirt bike
miss this.
video.
The dirt bikes
I was like,
was what
this
did it
is
for me.
fucking embarrassing.
Yeah, I have to go.
This is
see
our country. It's motocross in front of the White House on the lawn.
Oh, they did like metal militia type, like dirt bike?
Yes. Yes.
They were doing ramps.
They were
on
doing
the-
like flips and shit. Like
just
just like
literally with dirt ramps on the lawn.
sounds awesome.
It made me go.
You went
I
for
was
the dirt-
not gonna go.
Come
And
for
I
the
saw-
dirt ramp,
Saw the
stay for the
flyover,
UFC.
flyover dirt bikes. I was like, man,
Flyovers were pretty cool.
flyovers were sick.
I saw you on TMZ and they were interviewing you, and then Tony was walking right next to you. You could tell he really wanted to be interviewed too, but he couldn't say anything. He said it should be like,
What do you think I thought about
He
the
would
comment?
have. He would have done me no favors if he would have jumped in.
oh yeah.
Speaking of Shane attending the event, one thing that has stood out to a lot of people is how he has once again managed to avoid much of the backlash that others received for being there. For example, plenty of criticism online has been directed at Nate Bargatze for attending the same event, yet Shane hasn't really found himself at the center of that conversation to the same degree. And for many observers, that contrast is pretty interesting. What makes it even more surprising is that Nate isn't heavily involved in the podcast world or the broader online commentary space. When it comes to stand-up comedy, though, both he and Shane operate at a similarly high level, regularly selling out arenas and drawing massive crowds. That's why some people find it strange that one comedian ended up facing headlines and criticism while the other largely avoided them. Even though Shane largely avoided major headlines this time, and even though some public figures seemed willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, a number of comedians have started poking fun at his connections to Rogan, Tony Hinchcliffe, and other personalities frequently associated with that scene.
One of the things that what caught me off guard was after the Josh Hokett stuff, you had Barstool's Dave Portnoy, saying that the president needs to denounce this, and I was like, what? Portnoy's saying this? Shane Gillis was like, I didn't like the comment, but I was like, last week you were like, and you had your hand around Hinchcliffe's balls, like fondling them, because you were like, I loved the fucking joke about how that black guy got killed by a cop. That was so fun. But he was like, but not in front of the White House. Yeah, not.
Dude, well, and here's the thing. As you said before, that your friend said that this is what Hokett would say.
Yeah.
Right. I looked it up. Dana White said almost verbatim what Shane said 6 fucking months ago when that fighter said this shit about Brittany Griner, and I think he's also said shit about Michelle Obama. And not to get all fuck you to Shane, but Shane's also made the same exact joke on his fucking podcast. Him coming out and just going, I didn't like that. You didn't have to go, Shane. You didn't have to fucking go. You knew what it was.
Well,
I saw you getting caught on the way in. You got caught by CNN going on the way in, and they asked you how you got a ticket. Joe gave you a ticket. Fuck off. Joe Rogan's your best friend. Joe Rogan believes that he's using Trump. Joe Rogan is Trump's little bitch dog. And you're the dog walker. That's who you are, Shane. I'm sorry. I've known you for a long time. I could probably text you this shit. I don't give a fuck. Because we're clowns, boy. We're fucking clowns. I'm tired of this shit. I'm tired of Nate Bargatze being like, no, I'm family friendly. You've been MAGA the whole time. Guys, stop pretending you're not MAGA. Just stop. I'm tired of the fucking, at least Tony Hinchcliffe, for as shitty as he is as comedy, that everybody now knows. Now they've seen his Netflix special. 9 fucking minutes of where do you work, Tony? 9 fucking minutes? Or what do you do for a living? That's what you came to for your hour? You piece of shit with your fucking belt buckle. That's not gonna replace your father's love. The fucking bullshit with all of these guys. All fucking claim. At least Tony straight up admits he's MAGA. Joe tries to play this bullshit. I'm independent right now. Kamala would have been worse. Would have been worse for the 150 dead Iranian girls? Would have been worse for everybody in the fucking Epstein files? Would have been worse for our local fucking hospitals? Would have been worse for everything that we fucking lived through for the last 18 fucking months, Joe? Or did you need to take your daughters to the White House and tell them don't stand too close to Uncle Donnie the entire time, you fucking stupid fuck? If one person in your life loved you, Joe, they would have taught you how to buy a tie that fucking fits. You standing out there holding that microphone with your limp little fucking wrist. I hate you. Fuck you. And back to Shane real fast. Shane, you've hidden so fucking long of playing this game. Oh, he's a secret lib. You don't fucking denounce anything. You just stand around half the time and go, I didn't like that. Okay, you went. You fucking went. And I know people are going to be like, oh, yeah, Bromania, you went to the fucking White House. Yeah, I went. And I fucking denounced them on all the bullshit they were doing about other shit the entire time, too. I fucking told them to their faces they're fucking idiots. There's a thing that we have to do. There's a moment here. If you want to be a clown, then be a fucking clown. Be a clown all the goddamn time.
So, yeah, that may honestly be one of the most direct and uncompromising critiques of that entire group that we've heard in quite a while. And what makes Alex Perlman's comments stand out even more is the fact that he's reportedly been familiar with many of these people for years. Because of that, his criticism carried extra weight for a lot of viewers who were already questioning the direction of that comedy circle. More importantly, the reaction highlights a broader perception that has been growing around Joe Rogan, Tony Hinchcliffe, and increasingly Shane Gillis as well. Fair or unfair, some people now view Shane as being caught up in the same conversations simply because of his close association with that group. Whether people agree with that assessment or not, it's clear that the conversation surrounding Rogan's influence has changed dramatically. What was once viewed almost universally as a positive association is now being debated far more than ever before.
Do you think for comedians these days to be good with Rogan?
What do you mean?
Can it make or break someone's career if they...
Oh, good question. I'd say less than ever. There's so many, because of him actually, there's so many big podcasters now that if you're not on there, there's tons of options that like help launch you. And also he's been on so long that this idea of like, early on you could do it once, you're like, wow, you're big now. And this happens with every show. At midnight, back then, it was like, oh, it's big if you're on the first couple of years, and then it just becomes like, it's just a spot. Oh, Rogan, if he's matters to go on there. If you have to be
can he make, not, I don't mean like his, like personally he likes you, I mean like a Rogan endorsement, like make or break your career. Does that make sense?
No,
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah.
Same as like Theo, or like, not the same, but like, it helps. But like, Kill Tony's probably bigger.
Yeah.
Because Kill Tony's only funny the whole time.
It is only funny.
Yeah.
It is funny the whole
Rogan, you'll end up getting to serious discussions, which is like, this is so fucking dumb. I don't want to be doing serious discussions.
Yeah.
But then you get caught up doing it.
So, if Ari Shaffir is openly suggesting that Joe Rogan's influence isn't what it used to be, a lot of people see that as a pretty significant observation. After all, Ari is someone whose career benefited greatly from exposure through Rogan's platform, so hearing him make comments along those lines naturally caught people's attention. From the perspective of Rogan's critics, the experience of appearing on the podcast today is very different from what it once was. Years ago, comedians often viewed a JRE appearance as a major opportunity to reach a huge new audience. Now, some argue that the conversations have shifted away from comedy and toward recurring debates about politics, culture, public policy, and other controversial topics that dominate the news cycle. Supporters of that viewpoint often point to comedians like Brian Callen and Brendan Schaub, arguing that regular appearances on JRE have not necessarily translated into career momentum in recent years. To them, that serves as evidence that the so-called Rogan boost no longer carries the same impact it once did. One exchange that fueled this conversation involved a discussion about how many online political commentators seem to have backgrounds in stand-up comedy. The moment was lighthearted, but it reflected a broader debate about the growing overlap between entertainment, podcasting, and political commentary. At the center of much of the criticism, however, is Rogan's handling of the Epstein-related story. Many critics point out that despite his reported access to influential political figures, including Donald Trump, Rogan has not publicly pressed the issue in the way they expected someone with his platform might.
Vance, I said, just release everything. I'm a podcaster. I have no real power, but just release everything. Release every file you have. Release everything. They've not done that. But that's the only way. That's the only way that you can wash your hands of this. You release everything. You commission an independent investigation. You have Ghislaine Maxwell testify. All this stuff. You got to do it. If you don't do it, you'll be inherently suspect forever. It's just what it is. It's maximum transparency, or you're suspect forever. And then there's no amount of UFC fights on the White House lawn. There's no amount of fireworks, and there's no amount of military flyovers you can do that are going to satisfy people, because everybody's going to go, you are participating in a cover-up of the worst crime imaginable. It's very simple.
So yeah, it seems like that's really what this entire situation comes down to. For many critics, the issue isn't one podcast episode, one UFC event, or even a single controversial opinion. It's the larger pattern they believe they're seeing emerge over time. Their argument is that whenever topics involving Donald Trump, Palantir, or some of Rogan's wealthy and influential associates come up, he appears far less willing to question things than he once was. And that stands out to people because Joe built much of his reputation on being someone who constantly challenged narratives, explored controversial subjects, and asked difficult questions. But for now, the criticism doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. But anyway, guys, that's gonna do it for this video.